Welcome to Tracing Your Family Roots. My name is Arline Sachs. This is Andrea Meyerhoff and Jacob Thiessen. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about the International Conference on Jewish Genealogy that all three of us just came from in Chicago. And this is the little syllabus that they handed us. Fortunately, we didn't have to carry the whole thing around, but it gives all of the information that we needed to. When did you first hear about the conference?
I subscribed to the email New What's New that Gary Mokotov puts out, and I must have seen the notice sometime a couple months before.
And so this is your first conference then for both of you?
Yes.
And what did you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. It was great.
Did you feel overwhelmed?
A little bit. I like to think of it more that there was pretty much all day, every day, just constant things I could go and do. Yeah. And you could attend talks, you could go to films, you could take out for a while and see a little bit of Chicago, you could come back in. So that was great. Very rich environment.
Each of the talks was about an hour and 15 minutes, and 15 minutes, and I felt like I was at school running from one to the other sometimes trying to get to them. What did you like best?
Well, one of the things that I liked was that there was such a wide variety of different kinds of people who were making presentations of one kind. There were academics, there were enthusiastic amateurs, there were people who had done it for a long time, there were people who had done it for a short time, and I felt, as both a genealogist and the husband of a genealogist, that I always could find something interesting at all different kinds of levels. So it was very stimulating that way.
Did you find that you went to different talks, or did you always?
Sometimes we had to. The schedule was so dense, we would actually go through and highlight the talks we wanted to go to, and some hours would have 2 or 3 choices. So sometimes we split up just to cover the ground.
Yeah, that's what I found. I did that a lot too. What did you like best? You meant, when we were talking before, you mentioned something about Cyrillic and how practical that was.
Well, there was such a range of stuff to do. Some very practical learning, like, here's how you read the Cyrillic alphabet, here's how you pronounce things, here's how you access records in Poland. Just tons of stuff that will help people move forward in their own work. There were academic investigators and people who have published before and studied this kind of stuff for decades. There are individuals who had started projects of their own. I remember one man in particular has been restoring Jewish cemeteries in Belarusia, just completely self-started, just really neat.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I find that when I go to them, I come back so enthused and ready to start doing some more research if I've been lagging and haven't done anything for a while.
Yeah, it's like a shot in the arm.
Yeah, it is. And this one, I like the new stuff. To me, was a lot of the DNA, because I've of course been doing it a while, and there wasn't that much new in my field. But besides, you went to the ones on the southern, the German one, the southern. What did you think of him?
I loved that stuff. Germany is one of my main interests, so I was really glad to have this guy. I think he gave 3 talks total, and very scholarly, very methodical. I thought the way he approached the subject was, it was reliable. What he was telling me, I knew I could count on. Yeah. I was given ways to go forward in looking into my own family.
Was he a professional researcher? I think he was.
He was.
I mean, that's
he's also, I think he's an academic. I think he's affiliated with a university as well.
Okay.
So I liked him a lot. He was great.
And I'd say one of the interesting things about that kind of detail that he went into, I mean, he was only talking about southern Germany, but the detail that he went into gives a certain amount of stimulation to people thinking about other parts of Germany, or even maybe other countries, because they get a sense of, well, these are the different levels of government, and these are the different kinds of institutions that were operating in the 18th century. It was sort of the main focus. So you get an idea that, well, this is the sort of thing I might be looking at. Even if my people don't come from southern Germany, I can still get some inspiration.
Yeah. And he was not Jewish, so he was doing things on a more general basis, and he was just reporting to us really on the Jewish things. But I thought it was very interesting in that one, when he did the wedding one, and there were some words that he wasn't sure of, and then people in the audience were explaining to him, well, this has to be the case because that's the rule,
Yeah.
the law. I think it had to do with something, the groom had to sign that he wouldn't take a second wife or
Right.
something like that in order to, because that's an old Jewish law, and of course we don't do that in the modern age, and in order to conform with the regular, what do you call it, civil law.
Right,
they signed this kind of thing. And I thought that was sort of an interesting
Yeah.
thing where he learned something too. I know you said you went to a lot of lectures. What did you particularly like? Or
Well, as I said, it was such a full program. I kind of had to choose the priorities that I would focus on, and for me, it was the places where my own family had been. So I was particularly interested in Germany. They had a lot of stuff on British Jews, and that was interesting to me. Also, when we had been in Germany in May, I had gone to the town where the Meyerhoff part of my family comes from, and I had found out that I had had a cousin who, as a child, was sent to Holland and spent the several years there, ultimately as a hidden child, and then was transported to Poland, where she was killed in Sobibor. But what I didn't know was that she had been hidden much like Anne Frank had been hidden. So there were a number of things about Anne Frank and about Dutch Jews at the conference just a couple of weeks ago that, for me, I had a new interest in. They had the Otto Frank files from the that I think Evo has now. They had the couple of movies about Anne Frank, so that was very interesting to me.
Yeah. What did you find particularly interesting?
Well, among other things, there was a large number of films, and there were films going pretty much the entire time, so that you could, if you wanted to go to films, you could go to films. If you wanted to go to presentations, you could. And some of the films were particularly, I thought, of interest. Well, one of them especially was of interest to me because it took place mostly in the town of Harbin in Manchuria. And that's where my grandfather spent several years before coming to the United States. Because it's a film, of course, you see the place, you see photographs of it, and you see people actually moving around on streets where 80 years ago my grandfather had actually been. And so again, it's like the range of possibilities that existed in just a week to see kinds of things, to listen to people talk, was really astonishing. I had no expectation that I would be able ever, without actually going to Harbin, which I haven't really gotten around to yet, to see the place. And lo and behold, there it is. The center of the town still looks the way it did in 1929. And you have a narrator, walking around, seeing things. And this was just repeated over and over. I thought that the movies actually were really quite fascinating, a lot of them. They ranged very widely.
Yeah, the only one that I got to see was on Simon Wiesenthal, which was, I think, on the very first Sunday before things really got hectic. And I never got to see any others, although
Really?
there were others I wanted to see, but a couple of times we just had to get out of the hotel too,
Yeah.
and you get overwhelmed otherwise. What other new areas, or what else did you find that?
We went to one movie that I really liked on Jews in Cuba. I don't have any personal ties to Cuba, but I have a friend who comes from Cuba. She and her family have been Catholics for several generations, but tells me that sometime in the 1500s they were Jews who immigrated to Cuba. So as a result, I've gotten kind of interested in that part of Jewish history, and there was a great movie on that, which I really enjoyed.
Let's see, there were also sort of random discoveries that you come across various different times. For instance, and this keeps happening, of course, in genealogy all the time. You discover some new place where you hadn't thought about looking, or that you hadn't even known the records existed. And you find out about them in the oddest sort of ways. I went to one talk that was really on the experience of traveling in steerage. So it was mostly an attempt to kind of get people to understand what it felt like, or what their ancestors might have actually experienced in the boat. But in order to make sense of that, they had to talk in broader terms about what people did and how it was administered, really, how the whole process of transportation was administered. I had not known, except from this random comment in this presentation, that up until the mid-1880s, the legal responsibility for the health and safety of immigrants was divided between the federal government and the state governments, so that if you were on a U.S. ship coming to the United States, outside of the territorial limits, federal law applied, and inside territorial limits, state law applied, so that if you were an immigrant to New York, the health and safety records of that immigrant, once they crossed into territorial waters, were in the state archives. They weren't in the federal archives. They weren't in Ellis Island, or Castle Island, I guess it was, and they weren't ever moved to the national archives. They're in Albany, or they're in New York City, but they belong to the state sanitary commission, something like that. So those kind of discoveries kind of popped up really all over. Almost every place you went, every talk you went to or movie that you went to, you saw something that would be of interest.
Well, I think that's the thing in genealogy, that there's so many locations, and the odd things that you find in places that you would never ever expect. And the sanitary commission for health records from 1800s. I mean, it's like the Shanghai records that are in our archives. And that. I don't know of any place that lists every place that you can find these things. It's just what you pick up as you continue doing genealogy.
You never know where you're going to find something.
No, that's one of the reasons that I try to push Genealogy Society so much, is that there you're networking, you're meeting other people that are doing the research in the same areas that you are. And through that and through Jewish Gen, people have linked together with the kinds of, areas that they're looking for, or usually it's by town or something like that. What else did you? Well, like the Nashes that you met for the first time in Germany, you get to meet people that are doing other similar types of things. That Peter Nash's family came through Shanghai, so yours came through Harbin, and it's a similar type of research, I think. And you begin to learn. I don't think the archives has anything on Harbin, though.
Well, and you found out there was an enormous amount about British Jews.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. For a reason I don't know, my grandfather was born in London. His family came from Germany, but he was born in London. I still can't find out why. But so I'm very interested in British Jews and where they keep their records and what has happened to them.
Yeah, well, there's a good genealogy society in London too. They do a lot, and they can probably help.
Yes, and in fact, I had thought my grandfather was born in 1871 in London. Boy, that's a pretty modern place. There's good record keeping. There's good administrative processes. I can't find anything on him. I can find more stuff on older relatives in little towns in Germany.
If they were born in London, did you check with the synagogue? They might have circumcision records.
I've looked all over the place. I'm still looking.
Well, we'll see if we can think of something else, or I'll give you the name of a friend there that in the society there that might be able to help you. What else did you?
Well, I was actually curious, Arline, because we didn't go to any of the DNA-related stuff, and it sounds like there was a lot of DNA-related stuff there for you.
Yes, that was something that was, that's sort of on the cutting edge of genealogy these days, and I went to one by Herb Upshur, and that we've had him on the show previously talking about the Worth group. Worth simply is the initials of the first 5 people that were involved that had the same, that showed that they were definitely family. And they now have 60 families in their little group. So it's a really, really fascinating thing. I hope he'll come down someday again so we can talk some more on it. Then there were other lectures. Some of them were on the general use of DNA. Bennett Greenspan spoke about his family tree DNA, which is the group that has, he founded his group mainly to do genealogy research. And his family tree DNA is the one that did the National Geographic studies. So there was that type. Then there were some that were talking about the medical side of it and how they can use it to find, how they match it and what they're looking for when they're looking for medical. Not any specific disease that they were talking about. I think she used one as an example a couple of times, but what they looked for and how they could find that. So there's so many sides to this. It's the groups. Generally they call them name groups because you start out by looking with somebody with the same last name. But like in the Worth group, there are 60 families. There must be at least 50 different last names. So I think this is especially true for Jews. Any group that's over a couple of hundred years old, because we didn't have last names before then. So. I thought there was an awful lot on that, and I was sort of glad on that. What else did you like?
Well, one other thing about Chicago that was actually kind of a surprise to us was when we were actually just walking around and we came upon the Newberry Library, which we should have known about, right? I mean, here is one of these great research libraries. We had no idea what it was actually when we walked in. And we had no idea that we could just walk in. We discovered eventually that it is a public library in the sense that anybody can come in, anybody can use its collections. And although we don't have a whole lot of genealogical research to do about America, and certainly not about Chicago, the library is vast. It's got something like 5 million items in it.
Oh, wow.
And so it has material like, what was it? It was a journal from
it had a 19th century German Jewish newspaper. The entire collection. I mean, in an hour I got the issue. It's the Allgemeine Zeitung des Judentums. It came out of Leipzig.
Oh, okay. Allgemein. There was also one from Mainz that by the same name. The Allgemein.
Probably three of them.
Well, I guess it's sort of a common name. It's like, I guess, like the Times or something like that. Every city's going to have it. We never got ourselves over to that.
We enjoyed that, and they're very nice. They gave us reader cards, and they showed us around. They took us on a tour, showed us the holdings. Very nice. Yeah.
And for instance, if you wanted to know about physical locations of things, there was actually one talk at the conference about using maps. And I mean, I like maps, so they're always interesting. The Newberry Library has 500,000 maps of all different eras, all over the world. And so there's, again, things pop up in places you don't expect. There's this vast resource for geographical information and genealogical information that can be tied to it. Just sitting right there in the middle of Chicago. Anybody can go to that they want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was. We got over to the Spertus Museum, which is the Jewish museum, which was only a few blocks away, but we didn't get to the Newberry. Did they have a lot of Chicago stuff too, or was it all over the world?
Well, my impression is, I mean, it is all over the world, but my impression was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if you were like interested in Chicago, that'd be the first place to go.
Well, they had tons of stuff about Chicago, about the Jewish community in Chicago, maps. They had a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll have to get over there because Sid's family was in Chicago
really?
about 130 years ago. Yeah, by 1870 they were living in Chicago. So what else did you do either in Chicago or at the conference, or did you ever get a chance to look through all?
We did. We did. I still have more to go.
Yes, it's sort of, I'll mention a little bit of this. It has all of the speakers' bios. It has all of the sessions and the films. They have material the speakers put out.
That's something to keep. It's a real resource. One thing that happened that was sort of interesting to me is when we had gone on the trip to Bad Arolsen in May, there were a number of people who then were at this meeting in Chicago. One of them was Valerie Bazaroff, the head of the immigrant part of HIAS. And I went to his talk, partly because I kind of knew him. It was great. I learned about a whole new set of archives and a whole new set of stories that they have at HIAS. And so in a way, not only does it have new learning, but you kind of build on these relationships you've developed in the past.
That's the networking. That's what I've said is so important about genealogy societies and these conventions. I didn't get a chance to see Valerie until I was leaving. We were both leaving at the same time. Because there were, I think, 600 or 800 people. There was a lot. It wasn't the biggest because I think people thought, well, there isn't that much in Chicago, but I think they put on, that IAJGS put on a good conference.
We loved
yeah,
the city.
it was
He
great.
went to college there, so we had been planning to go to Chicago one of these days. We had a really good time. A lot of places to walk around.
Yeah, well, we both grew up in Chicago, but I don't think we ever spent time in downtown Chicago. You grow up and wherever you live, and you go to college, and you get married, and you move away, which is what we did, and we never, did the things did the downtown things. What about the Family Finder? Did you use that at all? Because that is such an important resource generally.
I looked through it. I'm so discouraged. And as I mentioned to you earlier, one of the names that I'm most interested in is Meyer, which is
It's very common.
It's the German equivalent of Smith, and it's spelled a million different ways. I'm never very hopeful when I look at those.
Well, if you find a Meyer that's in the same town that you're looking for, I mean, usually they have it by town.
I'll tell you a funny story. It's not so much related to the Chicago trip, but a very closely linked one. When we were in Germany, I found out that there was a part of my family named Goldschmidt in the town of Offenbach, where we had been doing a lot of looking around. And when I got home, I started looking in some of the online databases just to see what I could learn about this family. And it turns out there were a number of records submitted on this family, which is a fairly common name, in Offenbach. I said, geez, these must be the same people. So I looked up the name of the submitter. Well, the submitter was a guy who had been on this trip that we had all taken to Germany. So I sent him an email, and I know he's a professional genealogist, and he does research for people he's not related to. So I said, are you still in touch with the family? Well, yes, he is, because it's his wife's family. Oh. Turns out his wife and I are probably distant cousins.
Oh,
that was an unexpected benefit.
Well, as I said, the networking is what's so important in genealogy, and maybe Jewish genealogy, perhaps more than others, because our group is smaller, and therefore you're more likely to meet eventually somebody that you're related to, even if it's only the third or fourth or sixth or something cousin.
Arline, I have a question. You've been to more of these, far more obviously than we have. Is that typical that you get that much material at a
This is a little
conference?
bit fatter than usual, perhaps.
Because it's really very impressive, and that is a resource to go back to over and over again.
The Jewish Genealogy Society of Greater Washington probably has every one of them. Because
That's great.
somebody donates it. I mean, they used to give one to every person that went. So when we got two of them, I always donated one to the society. Right. I'm not donating this because it's my single one, but probably someone will. And also the society always bought all of the tapes. They were selling each individual. I guess maybe it's in CDs format now, but it was always tapes before, and those are all in the library.
That's right, because they taped all of the sessions.
All of the sessions are always taped. I think some of them, and this is my own personal opinion, an audio tape doesn't really help, because if they do a lot of visuals, then if you just hear it, you don't necessarily, well, especially if they're going to do language or something like that, and see how this letter is different from that. And if you're just listening, you can't hear it. But many of the lectures that you say, oh, I wish I could have gone to that, you can get the lecture from the society.
I have another question. Do you have a sense over time that the attendance at the meetings is growing, and the number of presentations and the material?
Oh, absolutely. I think our first one, we had 150 people here in 1983. So or 80. I think we did 82, and then maybe 85.
Well, there's a lot more than 150 in Chicago.
I think we had 1,200 at the last one. I think the year before ours, New York cut theirs off at 1,200 because their rooms couldn't hold anymore. And after that, if you came, you might be able to attend one lecture if there was room in that room or something. I don't know exactly what they did. But they certainly have been growing. Chicago is not a site that a lot of people might have come to, particularly foreigners. I didn't see too many foreigners. The French one, the European ones tend to not get as many because it's so expensive for Americans to go there. But they've been growing and growing consistently, and generally average 800 to
that's big.
12 or 1,500 Yeah, and New York will get the most because obviously you have your New York people coming. We're going to run out of time soon. Is there anything else you want to say about the conference, or having been to a conference, or would you go again?
Oh,
absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
Depends a little bit on where it is, but yes.
Yeah, next year it's going to be in Philadelphia, and then LA is the following one, and then right here in Washington. So that's going to be exciting to have it
Great.
here.
Great. Washington's a definite.
Yeah.
I think last time we had almost outgrown those facilities, so I don't know where we will be next time. It becomes a problem sometimes with the rooms, because I think that was one of the main problems that they had this year, that there were too many people that wanted to get into a room at once.
Yeah.
And I think that's possible. In Washington, it doesn't happen as much because a lot of people want to use the facilities. We've got Library of Congress, and we've got the archives, and we've got the Holocaust Museum, all right here. And a lot of people say, well, that's a good reason to come, and I'll go and, and they'll just attend a few lectures. Other people come mainly for the lectures. And that's, I think they had it in Las Vegas last year. I don't know what the attendance was. But the assumption was people are either going to gamble or they'll go to lectures. So there wasn't as much outside stuff, research facilities. Well, I want to thank you very, very much for coming and for talking to me today, and hope to see you at a lot more genealogy
I'll look forward to it.
It's a pleasure.